Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the APWASI Wine Buzz interview. Today's guest is synonymous with the number 262. Some of you may know that, many would. 26.2 miles. That is the distance of the International Marathon. And today's guest has not only run one or two or three, but an unbelievable 5. And added to that, the facets of being a mother, a wife, and a truly spectacular and very successful wine blogger. We welcome Brooke Martin. Thank you very much for joining us, Brooke.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Gosh, you're making me feel so special. I appreciate it.
You are special indeed. You are very rare. And if someone hasn't told you, then allow me to share that with our listeners. You are indeed. There's so much to you. And I would like to start perhaps on your website, Brooke. You wrote that you had a love for writing. Where did that come from?
It started in junior high, actually. I took a creative writing class and I fell in love with writing at that time. And it's always been a passion since then. So I'm very fortunate now that I get to put my passion for wine and passion for writing together as a career. It's great.
Are there any favorite writers or certain texts or poems that really resonate and touch your heart?
Oh gosh.
I'm sure there are many.
I was gonna say there's too many to just name one, so that would be a tough question, actually.
Okay, we'll come back to that one because
Okay.
I know that being a marathon runner, it will be percolating in your mind as
It will
you
be,
go through.
yes.
So you are now in Utah, in the
Yes,
United
correct.
States, and
Yeah.
tell us about your upbringing. Is that where you're from, Brooke? Were you born
I
there?
am, yes, born and raised in Utah. We briefly moved away to Arizona for a few years, but then moved back about 6 years ago. So I do a lot of traveling for work, primarily California, wine country, but yes, I reside in Utah, which is a lovely state. I encourage you to come visit if you've never been to Utah.
Well, there you are, listeners. Now, just as a matter of interest, do they have any wineries in Utah?
They don't have wineries. We have pretty strict liquor laws here in Utah, but we do have winemakers that are from Utah. So what they do is they'll get the grapes from somewhere else, Idaho, possibly California, and then make the wine. And technically it's from Utah. We
I
do
see.
have some vineyards down in southern Utah where it is a little warmer.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you've said, you were born and you grew up in Utah. So where did your love for wine actually start?
It started, I love this question because I still get giddy thinking about that moment. It happened on my honeymoon. So we made plans to go to Napa on our honeymoon. And this was, gosh, how long ago was this? 16 years ago. And at that time, I did not know a lot about wine. I would drink wine occasionally. So we went to Napa. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the terrain. I fell in love with the wineries, the stories. That is something that just really captivated me, was the stories of these wineries. And I remember driving back to the airport with my husband, and I looked at him and I said, "We are coming back here every single year." And we have. We've been back multiple times, more than once a year. So that is really where my passion for wine started.
Remarkable. So it really was the story and the culture and
Yeah,
how you are actually seeing history unfold.
absolutely. Yep.
Beautiful. So not only are you a marathon runner, but you're also a mother. Now, a mother of 4 children, Brooke.
Yes. Yes. Four.
Four. So
Four.
how do you manage, with 5 marathons and 4 children and your husband? How do you manage your time, and what does a day in your life look like? If you could tell us.
Okay. Well, I will be very honest. It's not always easy. There's a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of things going on, a big to-do list. So I have to prioritize my day depending on what I need to get accomplished for that day. I will say there's never a dull moment. I keep myself very busy, obviously, and
Yes.
it's really about prioritizing what the focus needs to be, what needs to be completed for that day.
And do you sometimes find it's more challenging in one aspect? And, when do you actually get to do the wine tasting? Is it more at nighttime or on certain days?
Well, now that it is a full-time job in
Right.
the industry, I'm doing a lot more spitting, which means I've got to taste through certain wines, maybe for certain projects or partnerships that I'm working on. And if I need to get it done during the day, then I need to drink a little earlier than I guess is acceptable, which means I'm spitting more than I'm drinking.
Oh,
But
yes.
I enjoy my wine, I should say, at night when I can unwind and with a glass of wine and not analyze everything about that wine. Just kind of, like I said, wind down with a nice glass of wine.
Oh, I am totally sympathetic to you there, Brooke, because during my years when I was studying as well, sometimes it could be as large a number as 100 different wines that
Oh,
we were tasting during the week. And it's
that's a lot.
highly impractical for us to be drinking that much. So
Yep.
absolutely the tasting would go with the spitting, and
Mm-hmm.
which is quite common for the industry. So I
Absolutely.
do sympathize with you. Now, are you still running at all? Any marathons, Brooke?
I am not running competitively any longer. I just run 2 to 3 times a week just to stay in shape. And for me, running is just as much mentally satisfying as it is physically. So it helps with my stress level. It helps me focus. It gets me ready for my day when I can start with that type of exercise.
Now, how did you get involved in your first marathon? Did you make a commitment and say, oh, I've seen that person running and I'm going to do that? Like you said with your husband, we're coming back, dear, every single year. What galvanized you?
Well, I do have a very driven, motivated personality just naturally. So when I commit myself to something, I'm going to do it, not only do it and complete it, but I want to do it well. I want to, not like break records, but I want to do better than maybe just the average person.
Of course.
So I had just had my second child. And I was looking for a way to kind of lose that last little bit of baby weight, and I had friends that wanted to sign up for a marathon. And I thought, well, I could probably do that. Sure. So I signed up for my first marathon and really enjoyed the training aspect of it, which can be pretty grueling. It's a lot of miles you have to put in. But I ran that first marathon and really I had a great experience from it.
If if I was to share with the listeners here, I think what I draw from that last comment from you was the need to have that determination, whether
Yes,
it's running or tasting wine or bringing up children. You need to prioritize, you need to be determined, and above all, it's enjoying the actual process, which brings us now, as you mentioned, that you are involved in the wine industry as a fellow professional.
hmm.
How did you start writing, your blogs and your Instagram? How did that all begin?
So I started the Brooke Blend back in 2016 as a creative outlet, really. At the time, I had a corporate job that was pretty stressful. I was traveling a lot for work, and I just needed something that was fun, that I
Mhm.
enjoyed, that I was passionate about. And so I decided to start the Brooke Blend blog and Instagram. And it really did help me just mentally to kind of have that outlet other than work. And then over time, it just organically grew into what it is today and has allowed me to quit that corporate job just this past May and focus 100% on wine.
So it was a normal transition from having to make the practical decision and say, this is not really what I want to do. I have done it. I've been successful. And now this is a new horizon. It's a new race for me, and one
Yes,
that we are sure that you are going to excel. So how has this new career and the training, as it were, really, has it changed
absolutely.
your lifestyle, Brooke?
Well, it was a true leap of faith. I got to the point where I was too busy. I had too much going on in my life that I needed to make that decision. I needed to decide, was I going to continue working my corporate job and focus on that and do that well,
Mm-hmm.
or am I going to make that transition into the wine world and do that well, and not only do that well, but thrive and enjoy it so much more than my corporate job. And that's the decision I made. Um, I will say it hasn't always been easy. It's scary being self-employed. It's a little nerve-wracking not knowing day to day where that income's going to come
Of
in
course.
from. So I have had to adjust that way in my lifestyle, where I for 20 years have been so used to having that steady salary
Of
that's coming
course.
in. So
Of course. But as a current training past marathon runner, you have more time with the children, I would imagine,
yeah.
which that time is invaluable. It's
Mhm.
priceless. There's no dollar value to that.
There's
And
not.
you're seeing them grow up. But what it does resonate, and loudly so, is that that you are setting targets for yourself. But I think what's important is, if the listeners could hear from you the topics. What is it that is it sometimes when you are running and you say, wow, that's a particular topic that I think the listeners would like, or I'm going to write about that. Or so what is it that inspires you about certain topics, Brooke?
That's actually a great question because I've had that question before, like, well, how do you know what to talk about or what to write about? And it really just comes from experience and day to day experience, and what I'm seeing elsewhere is where I get a lot of ideas. So through Instagram or other wine blogs. And if I see something where I'm like, oh, that, a lot of times what it does is I see a topic or an idea, and it triggers another topic or idea.
Uh-huh.
And so that's where I get a lot of ideas. My running. So when I do run in the mornings and I've got that time just to think, a
Mhm.
lot of ideas come at that time. Sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep, I've got just all these things going through my head and I have to grab my phone and take a few notes so that I remember it for the next morning. So I would say ideas come from, gosh, all sorts of places, not just one area.
Is there one particular one that you recall the build up to it, of a blog or a writing that you put together that you recall, oh, that's when I was inspired?
Well, sometimes a lot of my blog posts, I try to have it relatable to maybe the season or
Right.
something that's taking place, that a lot of people are talking about or want a specific idea or uh, so I don't think I'm saying this
No, not at
in a
all.
great
Not at
way,
all.
but
Yeah,
um, that's sometimes, a lot of times, I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times that's where my ideas come from, is just what's taking place, what's important, what's the buzz, what are people wanting to know about,
yes.
or what would be interesting for them to read about. Because as you know, there are a lot of wine bloggers and it's hard to stand out. I will admit that. And so a lot of times you've got to put your own spin on it, so that it is interesting enough for somebody to stop and read that article or that blog that you're
Mhm.
posting.
Well, you have a lovely style, and your perspective to certain topics really give it a new facet. Brooke, I've read some of your blogs and
Thank you.
going through them, and I find them to be very heartwarming, inspirational, and really sort of touching at the heart, and getting there. Where you go to some of the wineries, and it certainly is. You can feel it, that it's coming from the depths of your heart.
Well,
So
yeah, I appreciate that.
yeah,
It,
so my comment would be, there are many bloggers, but then there are bloggers. So so having said that, why do you think, and what do you think makes your wine blogs stand out from others?
I think what my audience truly appreciates is they do see that passion. They appreciate that I'm genuine, that I'm down to earth. I'm not trying to be somebody else. And they feel that, they see that, they read that when they read my articles. And I've been told that by the audience that I have, that that is something that they truly appreciate, that maybe you don't see as much in today's world.
Mhm. So it's very true, and you are definitely charting the course of your wine blogging, in your own specific style and pattern. So what is the main area that you are focusing on now, Brooke, given that this wine career is taking off full time?
So there's quite a few different things I'm
Mhm.
currently doing. And then I have, of course, goals of
Yes,
where I really kind of want to see things going.
right.
So yeah, I do have my wine blog,
Mhm.
thebrookblend.com, where I do primarily, I mean, that's the majority of my articles, my true like writing.
Mhm.
And I love that. I love that so much. And I wish that I was doing more of that, because really that is what I enjoy and what I'd like to do more of. I also With Instagram, I have a good following there as
You do.
well.
Very solid.
And yeah, it is, right? And so with that, I have quite a few partnerships and collaborations that I do. I do some consulting work as well with a couple different wine companies. And I actually enjoy that quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
and would not be opposed to getting into wine sales. That is certainly a possibility. But if I had my choice on where I really wanted things to go with the Brooke Blend, it would be more writing. I would love to get to the point where I'm writing for wine magazines. I have had a few things published in very small aspects, nothing like anything big yet.
Oh,
But
I think you're very humble. I think all, they say that little acorns grow into big oak trees. So you're very
that,
humble. You're very
that's
humble,
a good
Brooke.
point.
You're very
Thank
humble.
you.
No, because I saw, you have wine travels, you have pairings, and you have
Mhm.
tastings, and, you have taken some courses. And I wanted to ask you, um, I haven't had the privilege of traveling to, as they would say, your neck of the woods, but I would imagine there is a, a, a ethnic groups within the areas that you visit. So when you're pairing, how would you pair wines, let's say that from different ethnicities? Their food would be different. It's not a steak. It's not a sirloin or a turkey. How do you prepare for that when they ask you, if it's happened to you in the past?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I certainly do my research. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in all different ethnicities, but um, I love to pair like a Gewürztraminer or a Riesling with like a spicy Indian food.
Ah, yes.
That's a favorite for me. So it's really just, I would say if you're in that position where you're doing those type of pairings, do your research, be prepared, and have some different options on what those type of pairings would look like.
Hmm. And just sort of recently, we are also in the midst of a sort of generational changes. You have millennials and X, Y, Z, and how do you see that moving along in terms of the Brooke Blend? Like your audience, because what they want and what they're looking for is quite different.
It is, and um, you have to change with the times. And that there's just no way around it, especially in this fast-paced world that we live in, and with this younger generation and the way they do things. If you want to be successful, you have to transition with them, even if they are 20 plus years younger than you.
Mhm.
It's something you certainly have to do. I look very closely at like my insights on Instagram. I look at those different age groups that are following me. I try to be relatable
Right.
to them, so that the information that I'm putting out to them is inspirational, it's relatable, it's fun. That's something I've always, I guess, been proud of, is
Mhm.
that I I like to just keep it real, keep it simple, keep it fun loving, because if you don't do that, you're going to lose that audience pretty quickly.
So you're very much with the trends that are happening. And I wanted to mention a point, what that really was the catalyst for you when you visited the wineries, you said, you told your husband on your way back, we're going to visit this area again every year.
Mhm.
And that touches my heart, because I believe that for those that are entering into the world of wine, not just as a career, but as a hobby or a pastime or social interaction, that bottle of wine represents different cultures, history
Absolutely.
at a particular point in time. So being a consummate storyteller, do you share a great deal of culture and history of those vineyards or countries with your listeners or with your readers, Brooke? And how important do you think it is?
Oh, that's very important. And through my studies uh, in wine, so I have my WSET 2 and WSET 3. I found
And we
that
hope you'll be getting the APWASI speciality courses, which we'd be happy to work with you on that, Brooke. Yeah.
okay, I will definitely keep that in mind.
Okay.
Um, but I feel like through my studies, and when you study wine from around the world, I mean, you're really diving in to all these different areas and terrain and cultures, like you mentioned. And it's so important to share
Right.
those
Right.
stories and to share those details
Of
of
course.
that culture.
Well, having studied and also having taught the courses that you mentioned, you know that those specific levels, they refer more to the grape and the regions. But
Mhm.
in terms of the culture, perhaps it could be more. And that's what the APWASI courses do. They relate, there's always a huge section on the culture of the country, the food pairing, and there's quite a significant material within each course, because we believe that the world, in I believe they were saying 1812, there's about 1 billion people, and then 1912 is, went to 2 billion, and then within 60 years we've gone to 7+ billion. So
Mhm.
with so many people around, um, it's only natural that the impact and influence of other cultures will become enmeshed in the way we live our life and things that we do. So I agree with you that it is devastatingly important for our lives. And what having gone through the different cultural aspects, Brooke, what's one of your favorite wines, the top three, perhaps you could share with us?
Again, that's a tough question, but I do have one for you.
Okay.
Um,
But you're a marathon runner, you can take it.
yes, right? Um, so one of my absolute favorite wineries is A. Raffinelli Winery up in the Hillsburg Dry Creek area.
Okay.
And they focus primarily on Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and that's it. Small production winery, but they have a great story of their grandmother coming over to America from Italy because she was so upset that at the time, they would not let her be a winemaker and be involved in the process. So they came to America and started the winery, and just a wonderful family, wonderful story, and absolutely wonderful wines. So that would be at the top of my list.
Right. So we have Italy on the map. And
Yeah.
is there another one that you'd like to share?
Oh
Well,
gosh.
let's ask, if you're having dinner at the house with your husband, what is your, as they would say, what's your go-to wine, just to sit back, knock the shoes off, and just think, my gosh, what a day. What wine would
Well,
that be?
that's a great question because again, over time and through my experience, my education with wine, things have evolved and changed.
Of course.
If you were to ask me that question even 2 years ago, I would say I am a Cabernet girl. I love a big, bold Cabernet. But today, I would say I'd be very happy settling in on the couch with a lovely Pinot Noir. Or in the summertime, we drink a lot more wines. And again, back in the day, I may have said, oh, I just drink Sauvignon Blanc, nothing else. Well, now I might say, oh my gosh, I want an Albarino or a Viognier. So thankfully, I've kind of transitioned and evolved and enjoy so many other different varieties that are out there. So I'm so glad I kind of grew up a little bit, I guess you could say, with my my wines, because I feel like if you just hone in on one or two varieties, you're just missing out on so many great wines that are out there.
No true word said. No true word said, Brooke. I mean, you have shown versatility, flexibility. You are determined. You are the epitome of success, whether it's a mother, a wife, aspiring now wine professional. And I would say that all your 5 marathons that you have been have trained you for life. So
yes, it
there's a
certainly
quote.
helped.
Yeah, there's a quote that is attributed to the Boston Marathon runners. They say, when it comes to the hills, you kill those hills.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I would say they're not easy, but that's the mentality that you definitely have to have.
So, Brooke Martin, you've been a great guest, and it's been a huge pleasure having you on our interviews. And we will closely follow you, and we wish you all the very best success in the coming year and in future years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I've enjoyed this myself, and I really appreciate it.
So please comment, like, share, or subscribe to our videos.